What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Imri Cuzzy, and I'm flying solo today. I'm going to be talking about the all-ceiling team for the 2025 NFL Draft. A lot of fun players, and honestly, the guys you talk about betting on every year, these are the ones that everybody really wants to see more production from. Maybe they had low production, maybe they had an injury that really kept them out this year, or maybe they just played in a scheme that just didn't help their overall abilities. So we'll get into that. We did have an all floor team that came out a few days ago. So please go watch that and like and comment on this video. Tell us who your favorite all ceiling players are, because there's a ton that might have got left off that maybe I just didn't see as the all ceiling player that we get to. But at the same time, there's a bunch of good players out there. Obviously, the draft is very big and very long. So please comment about any of that stuff, and then subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing our NFL draft party on April 24th, which is draft night. That's a Thursday, where you can come in and hang out with us while we discuss everything draft while it's happening. We'll talk about the picks, we'll talk about the players, the team fits, we'll talk about everything, and then also ask any questions that y'all want to talk about, and we'll answer them. So let's get into this board. I'll pull up the screen now. There it is. Just looking at what we got up here, a lot of players that are just really good athletes, and we'll start talking about the first one here, Jackson Dart out of Mississippi. Biggest question mark with that Jackson Dart, who is a absolute stud as a quarterback and was this last couple of years, got better every year. He's a question mark because he is in a Lane Kiffin offense, and Lane Kiffin's offense isn't like it's a bad offense. Obviously, it works. Obviously, they won games. Mississippi had won games. But the problem is he's not reading the field enough to warrant the idea that he can start year one, because he doesn't go through multiple reads. He's slow progression types of plays, and he already knows kind of where he's throwing prior based on whatever defense he gets. That's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because at the same time, you need to have those basic reads. That's exactly what you should have. It's when the play breaks down that I see a lot of the issues. But I love Jackson Dart's arm overall. It's an absolute cannon. He can layer balls. He can do a lot of things. And his ability to improvise with his legs is actually pretty impressive for a guy that isn't a Lane Kiffin offense that we're talking so much mess about for not being able to get through his reads. So I really like Jackson Dart. I like him as a player. I kind of wish he would have gone to a different school his last year, but that's okay. He didn't. Just would have helped his just overall cognitive ability. He ended the year with a 180.7 quarterback rating, which was first of all players. He was first team All SEC, so it wasn't like he had a bad year. I'm not saying that. It's just we need to see him in a pro style offense prior to understanding truly where he's at as a prospect, and we're just not going to get that opportunity until he goes to the NFL. The next guy is Ollie Gordon the second, and Ollie Gordon is such a fun, interesting player to me because he goes from 2023, where he had 324 touches for 2,062 total yards and 22 touchdowns. Goes into 2024, gets 219 touches and has half the yards, 1,059 yards and 14 touchdowns. So with him, it's a big whole grouping of things, but he was the preseason top running back overall. He has the size and the frame, and scouts are just writing him off, and I don't get it. And Cam did a really good job of explaining this on our running back video. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. We have full rankings for every position, but the running back video, Cam said, when you're down every game and you're not getting the touches and you're not getting in the rhythm, it really does mess with you. And writing off Ollie Gordon after he had such an amazing year and was considered the top running back, if not him, Quinshon Judkins, but one of the two, it's we can't just write them off and put them in the 2020s for running back rankings. And so Ollie Gordon is such an interesting conversation to have, but if he does hit his ceiling, and he is the guy that we all expected him to be last summer prior to this season, you're getting an absolute steal, because he might go in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. That's an insane value for a player of his capabilities. So I think that that's one of the biggest things. Of course, he's a production issue, but he had the production in prior years, so it's not that we haven't seen it. Next guy, Luther Burden, is the same way. We're going to have a similar conversation about him, except for he didn't lose his pedigree nearly as much as Ollie Gordon did. Luther Burden goes from 2023, 1,212 yards and 9 touchdowns. To this year, 676 yards and 6 touchdowns. I, you know, for him, I really love actually. I like Luther Burden a lot. We have internal conversations about Luther Burden versus Emeka Ibuka versus Matthew Golden all the time between Cam, me, and Dustin because I think with Luther Burden, the athleticism, the explosiveness, the size, I think he has everything, and I will bet on him as an upside player, while maybe not bet on some of the other players. So with him, he forced 30 missed tackles this year, which was first overall of any wide receiver on 61 receptions. He had much less receptions than some of these other guys and still forced 30 missed tackles. Of course, my thing is I don't think Missouri used him very well. A lot of his catches are from behind the line of scrimmage to like a couple yards past the line of scrimmage. I don't think they ran the route trees that I thought they should with him. I think there was a lot of left on the table this year, and I thought the quarterback play obviously took a major step back, and you can just see that by statistics. So I think with Luther Burden, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and believe in the 2023 film rather than the 2024 film. I believe in his ability, and so I am betting on Luther Burden. If you go watch the wide receiver video, he is our wide receiver 3, and I'm expecting him to have, wide receiver 1 type of ability. It might not be in year 1, but he could transform himself into that. So that's my big take on Luther Burden. Next up, you have Savion Williams out of TCU, and he's an absolute enigma. He just is. He played quarterback 46 snaps. He played in the backfield 38 snaps. He was a slot 95 snaps, and then out wide he had 345 snaps. So he basically is just everywhere and used in so many different ways. He had 60 receptions and 51 carries. Like he just is all kinds of. I don't think TCU obviously used him correctly in the way that I thought he should have been used, but at the same time, sometimes you just give the ball to your best player, and that's what I think Savion Williams was. So I'm also going to bet on his upside a little bit. He's one of the craziest players to rank at the wide receiver position just because if you're betting on his contested catch rate, 88.9% contested catch rate. That's an insane number. But then he also has an 11.8% drop rate, which is just crazy to me. The whole thing is crazy because it's almost like he catches the ball when it's hard, but when it's easy, it's like, no, I can't do that. So he just is such an enigma to me, but if he hits his ceiling, he is going to absolutely destroy like the draft value that he gets because he has the ability to be one of the top 4 receivers in this class pretty easily, in my opinion, if he does hit that ceiling because he does have the athleticism, ran a great 40, did all the things. He's an absolute freak, and hopefully he can hit that ceiling and we can get a guy that, really takes off at the NFL level. Next guy up is Elijah Arroyo out of Miami. Elijah Arroyo played with Cam Ward. Cam Ward this year had 305 receptions. Elijah Arroyo had 35 receptions. Cam Ward had 305 completions. Elijah Arroyo had 35 receptions. That is insane numbers to me because you're one of the main options on the team, and you're not getting the receptions that I'd expect you to get, especially when you are a receiving style tight end. 20% complete contested catch rate by Arroyo. That's low. We need to get that up. But he did have he had 16.9 yards per reception, which was first among tight ends. He's not an enigma by any means because you got to see what his stylistically was. But as a receiving tight end, he's very good. I just wish we would have gotten more out of him at the college level. And so he's not necessarily the safest guy, and that's why he's on the all-ceiling team. But if you do hit his ceiling, because I think he's also a pretty good blocker. If you do hit his ceiling, he's possibly a 1,000 yards a year type of tight end, and that's something we haven't seen consistently. So we're in the conversation of like, can he be like a full-time, 6 receptions a game type of tight end? And that is why Some people believe in him and they have him in like the top 40 of their big boards, and some people don't believe in him as much and they have him like in the top 60. So he's actually in the same range basically, but it's like questioning if he can be a number one tight end for his whole career basically. Next up is Will Campbell, and I know I'm going to get so much flack for it, but I love this conversation, and I believe that Will Campbell should be an interior offensive lineman. I've had conversations with buddies from LSU. I've had conversations with a lot of people, and some people believe that he should stay at tackle, which is fine if you think that. But I just personally believe that his best opportunity is to play interior offensive line, and that's why he's all ceiling here is because his best ceiling spot is in the interior offensive line. It's not at tackle, so that's why he's a IOL on this board. Now, if he goes to interior offensive line, it'll really help his percentiles at tackle. He has 32 and 5/8 inch arms, which is 21st percentile, which is super low. But that's not the worst part. His wingspan is 77 and 3/8, which is very short. It's probably about what my wingspan is, and I'm about 6 foot tall. That is the 7th percentile of all offensive tackles. He has issues, and I know that a lot of people are like, well, if his film's so good, why would you move him from tackle to guard? Well, it's because I don't actually think his film is that great when it comes to cornering. He had 18 quarterback pressures given up this year, 3.2% of his pass blocking snaps, and it's because of the corners. Like edges can get around him to his outside corner because his arms are short, they can dip under him because he's so tall for short arms, like add the two things together basically. And I think that that's his biggest issue. So I think that moving him to guard and using him as like, because he's the best run blocker. Everybody wants to make that case. Oh, he's the best run blocker at tackle. Well, he's also a really good run blocker at guard, most likely, right? Moving him inside, I think he'd be the number one offensive lineman if he plays there. We actually did our rankings, but he is the number one offensive lineman in the last two classes to me. Interior offensive lineman in the last two classes to me. He's a freak athlete. He had a 4.98 40. He can basically play. He's a scheme versatile at that point. I just think that's his best position, and I believe that. I'm gonna continue pushing that. Hopefully, it doesn't take too long for them to move him inside. Take Mekhi Becton, or because we've seen multiple players get moved inside after they sucked at tackle. And I don't know that I think Will Campbell will suck at tackle, but I don't want him to be just average if you're going to take him in the top 15 picks. You want him to be all pro-ish, and the best spot for him to be an all pro is at guard. That's just how I feel. So that's kind of where I'm pushing him to be, and I hope that some people listen or believe in that same thing. But I think if you're going to take him in the top 15 picks, you're probably going to throw him at tackle for a little while and then move him to guard if he sucks. I just don't want him to suck. I think he's good. I think he's the best interior offensive lineman in the class. And then next up is Charles Grant from William & Mary. He's one of the hardest people in this class to kind of watch film and decipher where or what he should be. But one thing you will see is, first off, he's an FCS All-American, and you see athleticism is his calling card. And I'm a big believer that you have to have insane athleticism to play tackle at the NFL level. So with him, he does have the length, and he has got good size. He's got 34 and 3/4 inch arms. He's got, great run grade and pass grade, 90.4 run grade, 93.0 pass grade. Like, he has done really well. He gave up 2 sacks, which I thought was interesting, but I watched them and I'm like, okay, it's on a blitz or this or that. So it wasn't necessarily like I thought it was all his fault. But with him, it's the strength that I have the biggest issue with. Is he strong enough to go from an FCS program to the NFL? Right now, I don't think so. And people are putting him into the top 50, and I understand it based on athleticism, but I think he needs at least a year to get to play strength and also possibly put on some weight because he weighed in at like 300 pounds. So he just needs a little bit of time, and drafting him earlier than the third round will be an issue I have with it. But at the same time, if you're betting on the upside, I see it. I see all the athleticism and all that stuff that you want in upside. He's got it. So I'm not against the idea. It's just I'm not as comfortable with some of the placing on his big board and overall, ability. But he's an exciting player. I think he has to play tackle at the NFL level, and he's 6'4", so I wish he was a little bit taller. But at the same time, he could end up being one of the best players at the tackle position in his class. It's just there's a lot more question marks with him than there are with a lot of the other tackle prospects. And there's a lot more like, you know, he has the lowest floor, but he might also have one of the highest ceilings kind of thing. So let's check out this all offensive, all ceiling team. As you can see here, we got the first half of it right here. Guard, offensive tackle. If you got those two guys, you know you're betting on that upside, but you're also like, okay, let me move Will Campbell inside. So, there's that question that we keep talking about. Ollie Gordon, he did so well, and so I'm gonna bet on him to also continue or go back to the 2023 tape, just like Luther Burden. Savion Williams is Enigma, and then just seeing Jackson Dart in in an offense, not Lane Kiffin's, would be great to kind of give us a little bit more of a baseline. So I think all these guys really fit on this all ceiling team. The more interesting all ceiling team is on the defensive side of the ball for sure, though. So let's flip on over and check it out because this is one of the like you're like this is the all ceiling team. Like if you're like looking at this list, you're like, yeah, these guys have low production, got injured, um, haven't even come close to like what we think they could be. So getting into this, I mean, it's definitely a different beast compared to the offense. Darius Alexander, he was a come from Toledo, wasn't even a first team All MAC player. And it has to do with a little bit of inconsistency. I don't know if it's laziness, but I think it's a little bit of laziness on plays that just he doesn't feel like matter. But if you go watch his like Senior Bowl tape, you're like, where was this guy all year? You know, and so believing in those types of reps at the Senior Bowl is great. I believe that if you can do it one time, you can do it a lot of times. But at the same time, I wish you did it more often because we can't be one rep heroes. And Darius Alexander was a little bit like that. Now, doesn't he his alignment versatility at the Senior Bowl was crazy. He was rushing edge. He was an edge rusher. He was an interior defense lineman. He looked great at everything. It didn't really matter. But I just wish I saw it more on film to be able to be like, yeah, that's what I checked that box. Because if he did check that box, he's a first round player. Like if that was in question, like he's an absolute first round player if he did consistently check that box, and he didn't. So that's my biggest problem with him. But at the same time, like if he just goes every play, he's one of the best players in this draft class. The next guy is Dion Walker. Now, Dion came into the year as one of the top touted players at the position. He is 21.3 years old when the season starts. So insanely young player. He's literally a walking mountain. He's 6'7", 311 pounds. And he just has some serious stamina issues. Like we talked about Tavondre Sweat last year and thinking that he was going to end up being a stamina problem, and we didn't see that with him in college. Well, we see it with Dion Walker. Dion Walker had, quits about halfway through a drive, and I thought that Kentucky needed to rotate him in and out more. But he does some good things, and he's going to be a problem just like against the run because of his width. If he is able to get into a good program where he works out at a high level and gets to a good weight and feels better and can go a lot, he is absolutely first team all pro type of projection if you can get the right stuff out of him. Problem is, I don't know that he will do those things because he's hasn't at this point. And then also it's like he had an 8.3% pass pressure per snap rate right now. We're going to need to see a lot more out of him because he could be a guy that's out of the league in 3 years, but he could also be a guy that like some team is like, no, we want him and we're going to push him to become a top 10, top 15 defensive lineman. And that's an absolute possibility on both sides. He's one of the one of the widest outcome players to me because he's so young that he has so much time to grow. But also, can you get him to do the things that you need him to? Because if you can, he's going to be an absolute problem for the NFL. So, next up, the literal conversation that we're going to talk about between ceiling players. It's all ceiling team is based on production versus athleticism all the time. Well, Shamar Stewart is the basis on that. 10.0 relative athletic score. He basically is the most athletic defensive end since I believe Cam and me talked about it, 1986. Don't quote me on that, but we can check those numbers later. 1986, let's say. That's insane. He's 21.7 years old, and at the start of the season, he's 6'5", 267. He has 34 and an eighth inch arms. He ran a 4.59 40. He had a 40-inch vert, 10'11" broad. Like, just did insane things at the combine, and that's where the relative athletic score comes from. But the problem is he had 4.5 sacks in 3 seasons and 1.5 in 2024 on a team that had, some of the better defensive linemen in the NCAA. So I can't get over his production versus his athleticism thing. Like, I'm a believer that, you need to at least get to 5 sacks. Like, that should not, and I'm not talking about for 3 years. I'm talking about in 1 year. Like, you should get to 5 sacks in a year. Like, that's not that much to ask. That's like half a sack a game. And he didn't even, his only sack came against Bowling Green. And then his half a sack was against DJ Lagway, who actually fell down and could have probably got out of that. So I have a lot of question marks with Shamar, but no one can doubt his athleticism. It's all there. So I just wish he could have put it together a little bit more to make me more comfortable, but people are putting him in the top 15, top 10, projecting a guy to be that high on boards because of just athleticism, but never showing that he can do it. I've seen a lot of players not make it in the NFL because of that. And a lot of people lose their jobs because of drafting a guy like this. So I would just warrant, just waiting maybe until you're a team, maybe like if he falls all the way to Detroit, you're not gonna be mad about it because like at that point, like you have a good team, you can take that risk and it's more okay. So I'm just I'm just not sure what to do with Shamar, but I know that he's not even in my top 32 players on the big board. Next guy up is Mykel Williams, who is a very similar production versus athleticism. These two guys are very similar. 6'5", 260 with 34 and 3/8 inch arms. But he'll be 21.1 when the season starts. Super young guy. But I like him. I like him more, and I project him better than I do with Shamar Stewart because I thought he was out of position when he was at Georgia. At Georgia, I thought they made him play 4I because he was the best option they had to get the most players on the field. And that's fair. That's absolutely fair. That's what teams do all the time. You want the best 11 players on the field. Mykel fit that bill. But at the same time, being out of position didn't help him on his pass rush win rate, which was an 11.0%, while, say, Shamar was 11.3% played actual edge outside the tackle, while Mykel played inside the tackle and had a much more difficult time getting after the passer. He had 5 sacks, which was much better. And I'm much more comfortable betting on Mykel than I am on Shamar. But Mykel also is a giant projection because we have not seen him do it. So that's my big thing with these two guys. They are the absolute, like, when you talk about an all-ceiling team, if they're not both on it, the people that created that all-ceiling team, I just feel, did not do their research enough to not put these two guys on there. The next guy is Jeffrey Bassa. He looked really great at the Senior Bowl. He was a leader, and he played well. He's a pretty athletic mover. At linebacker, it was a little bit harder to find a guy that fit the all-ceiling bill, but Jeffrey fits it because he only had 3.9 tackles per game. You play linebacker. Your job is to stop the run first. And he didn't do that very well. And then I expected him, maybe he's a Sam. Maybe he's like an outside linebacker, like an off-ball, like nickel type of Sam linebacker. Maybe think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah if you need a reference point. Well, problem is, he went to the combine and was slower than some of the other guys at running a 4.63, which is fine. That's a good run, but like I was just expecting him to be faster if he was going to play that position. I also didn't expect him to come in at 230. So it was more of an issue with just like inconsistencies and what position he'll play. I think he's going to be an off-ball will, and just be, a guy that runs to the ball. But at the same time, like I love guys that are around the football all the time, and Jeffrey Bossa wasn't. And I wish there was more production out of him because I think he's a good athlete. I think he's a good football player. I just don't know because he just didn't do it enough. Now, at the same time, he played for Oregon, and Oregon has studs all over the place. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and say the reason he didn't have those tackles is because they just had guys that were making tackles. Across their D line, you have Derek Harmon, Jamari Caldwell, Jordan Birch, and then just everywhere you look, they've got good football players. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt, but he had a 72.1 run grade, which needs to come up, and then a 70.2 coverage grade, which is solid, but it at the same time, like I expected more. So he's on the all ceiling team because he could be really, really good at the NFL level. I just haven't seen it yet. Next up, cornerback Savon Revel, and it just has to do with the fact that he was injured this year. He played 3 games. He had 2 interceptions, which is awesome. He was a fringe first rounder in the preseason last year, and I expected him. Obviously, he plays for ECU. ECU is not a very good football team, and when you just talk about wins and losses. And so he was the best player. He was kind of their guy. He had multiple kicks blocks. Like he has that explosive athleticism that you want to see. He might be the most athletic cornerback in the class if you don't include Travis Hunter. So I think the problem with me is a lot of people project him as a press man cornerback, including myself. Like I think if he hits his ceiling, he's a press man corner with his length and his size. Like he has all those things, his speed, like he's got it all. But he played 86% of his snaps in zone in 2023, and he that makes it hard to say like, oh yeah, I want to get behind this guy as a press man corner when it's like he didn't do it very often. And he's playing at lower level of competition. And it's not like he's Quinion Mitchell. Like Quinion Mitchell was a different story. So it's kind of hard. And then the injury, he tore his ACL. So my biggest thing with him is like I see the path for being an amazing football player. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you have to take a step back. He didn't do it at a high level. He didn't do it against high level competition consistently. And then also he missed his whole senior year, basically. Also, a big thing that I look at is penalties. He's a very grabby player. He had 11 penalties last year. And I wasn't as big on Terrion Arnold because of all the penalties and the things that I saw on film. And Terrion Arnold had a down season comparatively to some of the other guys drafted at the same level. So I think that we need to just, give Savon maybe a year or two to get really into it before we're just like, yeah, this guy, is a bust or not, because he just has a lot of stuff he's got to work on before he gets to high level, all ceiling type of player. But I like him a lot. I think that if you're just talking about athleticism, he's one of the best athletes at this cornerback position. He's also got some of the highest upside, and that's why he's on this list. And then Kevin Winston Jr., one of my favorite football players in this draft class. Absolutely love this guy. He was injured week 1, and then he tried to play week 2, but 2024 was just a bust for him completely. So we'll talk about 2023. In 2023, he had a 90.6 run grade, top notch, an 86.8 coverage grade. That's awesome. 50% of his passes, the targets thrown his way were completed. 50%. That's pretty good for a safety. And then he has 0.0% missed tackle rate. So he's the best tackler in the class based on just the stats, if you want to talk about it that way. He has alignment versatility. He can basically line up anywhere. And everybody's new favorite player in this draft class for the safety position is Nick Amanwari. And just so everybody knows, Kevin Winston is the same exact size as him. And I'm not saying that they would have tested out the same, but I think Kevin Winston is a very, very good athlete and would have had some insane numbers similar to Nick Amanwari. So he's being overlooked is my biggest thing. And I think he could be, if he would have played this whole year, he would have been a first rounder to me. Back into the first round, early second round. And we're overlooking him. And a lot of people have him going in the third round. It's going to be a steal, just how I kind of look at it. Of course, the question marks are there, but where you're going to get him for the price, and he's actually already run a 40 Like he ran a 40 earlier, I think a couple weeks ago. So you're getting a guy that is willing to do that. His knee must be better, is what I'm getting at. And he's also an athletic freak. You're going to be overspending on Nick Manwari while underspending on Kevin Winston, is how I kind of look at it. So, yeah, let's check out the team. This is our team here. As you can see, a couple defensive linemen, DNs, linebacker, safety, cornerback. Like, if you get this group here, it's just there are so many question marks, but you have so much value. Like these guys could just take over the league at one point, and I'm super excited. Betting on these guys versus like like I was saying earlier is hard. Like production, injuries, all the things. But at the same time, like trying to pick out which guys you really believe in this group is just the most fun part of this process. Like, I believe more in Michael Williams as an edge rusher than I do Shamar Stewart. That's not necessarily true across the board. And so I love having stands and taking stands on all these guys because they're such a fun group when you don't really know what the outcome is going to be and you kind of have to project and feel. And every year I get better at that and I get more comfortable with that. So this is the group that I really like love to do every year. Let me stop sharing. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. Of course, we're going to be doing so much draft stuff, and I talked about it a little bit at the beginning. We did a all floor team. This is all ceiling team. We're going to do best draft fits for every single team, AFC, NFC. We're going to be doing a big board, our final big board update, which is going to have 100 players instead of the 50 players we did last year and then earlier this year. We're going to do our final mock draft. We're going to do a what would we do mock draft, which I love. Those are my favorite because I get to be the GM and I get to tell y'all what I think, personal preference. So yeah, there's so much stuff we're going to be doing. Come hang out with us on the draft party. Like and comment on this video. Go watch our other videos. Please subscribe to the channel. We appreciate every one of y'all. We're almost to 250. We're trying to chug along, get as many people in here, and get to have conversations with everybody. But I appreciate you hanging out with me, and I'll see you on the next one.